Hawkeye's inception, he has always been an anti-authority figure in the Avengers and in the superhero scene in general. He doesn't really believe in following any sort of set rules, but he believes in doing what is right to the best of his ability, even if that means going into conflict with entities such as S.H.I.E.L.D., even the Avengers on some occasions. Now, Hawkeye in EMH was one of my favorite interpretations of the character. I thought he was really well done, he was extremely funny, and he was often the comedic relief of the show, but he also had one of the more compelling story arcs throughout the season, even if it happened more towards the middle and less than at the start or the beginning. And I think we should start today with Hawkeye's betrayal and his blind faith. The first time we meet Hawkeye, he is a part of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Special Operations Unit and is working very closely with Black Widow. It's implied the two of them have been teammates for years, and they trust each other with their lives. There's even some sort of subtle hints at a romantic tension between the two of them. The first assignment we see the two of these characters working together is against the Hulk, who happens to be going on what General Ross is saying is another one of his manic rampages, and that the Hulk needs to be put down despite everything that he's been trying to do. So Hawkeye and Black Widow are dispatched to fight the Hulk. See, Hulk has almost zero interest in fighting S.H.I.E.L.D. agents like Hawkeye and Black Widow, or even Ross in general, as he was really there to fight the Absorbing Man. But S.H.I.E.L.D. had put them and tasked them with not only taking down Hulk/Bruce Banner, but also taking him to the Cube, the secure facility for locking up Gamma villains for the most part. Now, both Black Widow and Hawkeye are able to dispatch of the Hulk simply because General Ross was willing to blow up all three of them if it meant taking down the Hulk, and Hulk is actually a hero, as explained in my last video, cheeky plug, that he essentially does not want them to get injured, and even in the object of time that he could escape from this conflict and fight, Hulk decides to save somebody instead of escaping. That somebody being Bobby Morse, who happened to be flying a S.H.I.E.L.D. jet at the time. And Hulk's decision to save her ultimately ends up leading to his capture, unfortunately. But in Hulk doing this act, it sort of gets Clint Barton thinking. It gets Hawkeye thinking, why would this supposed monster do an act such as not only saving his life, but saving the life of somebody else, when he could have escaped from the persecution that he's currently under? It didn't make sense to Clint.
The Hulk, he's a monster, right? I mean, that's what they told us. That's what everyone thinks. Military and S.H.I.E.L.D. have been chasing him for years. He's caused untold destruction. He's a monster. What do you think? Why did the Hulk save that ship? He could have just escaped. I saw it.
Maybe the question you should be asking is what S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Hulkbusters want the Hulk for.
This talk with Bruce Banner ends up leading Hawkeye to sort of questioning the government organization that he works for. He questions S.H.I.E.L.D., and he wants to deeply understand why they're kidnapping all of these gamma-irradiated villains and placing them inside of a prison specifically for them, and is the motive really to cure them? Hawkeye knows about some of the shady dealings that have been going on with S.H.I.E.L.D. in the past, and so I believe that informs his decision, and especially emboldened by the fact that he just hates authority. It's part of his character arc. And as we see in the show, Natasha isn't exactly one to be trusted, and that's Hawkeye's closest partner. So when Hawkeye sees her doing something shady, he wants to follow up on it, even if he wants to believe that she's on the up and up, as much as he thinks she is. And unfortunately for Hawkeye, what he finds is that Black Widow isn't exactly on the up and up like he had hoped. He finds that she is dealing in intelligence to the criminal organization known as Hydra, one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most sworn enemies. She's not only selling secrets, but giving away those blood samples of gamma-irradiated beings to Hydra, and is setting up a deal to make a drop right now. Now, it is interesting to note that Black Widow's eyes are green, and I think that was an intentional choice as a subtle portion of foreshadowing for her character in this TV show. Now, as Black Widow goes to make the drop with Hydra, giving them the blood, hoping to join their ranks fully, Hawkeye obviously gets there in time to stop the deal, and he is very hurt by the fact that Natasha would double-cross not only S.H.I.E.L.D., but double-cross him. They're supposed to be partners, they're supposed to be extremely close, and Hawkeye feels extremely betrayed by this, And it gets even worse when Black Widow essentially sets Hawkeye up and makes it look like he was the one who was being a traitor to S.H.I.E.L.D., not her, which ends up leading to Hawkeye being imprisoned by S.H.I.E.L.D. and being stripped of his special agent status, all of the things that he has worked for since he has been at S.H.I.E.L.D. He has just had his entire life turned upside down in a matter of a few hours. He figures out the organization he works for is corrupt. He figures out his partner is dealing to the villains, to the other side, and then he gets stripped of everything and is arrested. So of course he wants answers, but he also wants revenge, and a lot of it. The next time we see Hawkeye, he is locked up in the vault, still doing time for Black Widow's betrayal. But Hawkeye would get a lucky break, as Amora the Enchantress and Loki have been planning a breakout for all the villains across every single prison in this show that has been shown so far, and is planning to break them all out in order to cause chaos for the heroes of Earth. And in this process, Hawkeye is freed from his prison. Hawkeye decides to take the opportunity to escape. He helps the villains gather all of their necessary tools, along with his own fun little gadgets, in order to get everybody out so that he can make his grand escape in the exact same way. But Hawkeye does this with a twist. He has absolutely no interest in helping the villains actually escape. He is simply getting his stuff so he can help contain the villains inside of the vault. But unfortunately, when Iron Man shows up, he mistakes Hawkeye for a villain and decides to try and shoot at him, much to Hawkeye's happiness. But even when Iron Man was in his most dire straits, and after having technically wronged Hawkeye by trying to shoot at him, Hawkeye decides to save Iron Man, as he is a hero at heart. Hawkeye might not do things in the traditional sense, or as a very legal way of doing things, but he believes in his own code himself, and so he decides to continue to do what he was doing previously and helps Iron Man, believing that Iron Man will do more good than harm, especially if Hawkeye is able to escape, because Hawkeye really only has one thing on his mind, and that is getting Black Widow. Now, a few episodes later, while Hawkeye is still trying to find Black Widow, he is being pursued by the Avengers because he is still considered a traitor and somebody who broke out of the vault. So he is still viewed as a villain to the Avengers, which is fairly interesting, as Hawkeye doesn't even try to explain himself. He simply goes looking for Black Widow, believing that's the best way that he can not only clear his name, but also get answers for why she would betray him. But even being as skilled as Hawkeye is, he was basically on the verge of getting caught by the Avengers if it wasn't for the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. intervenes to save him, surprisingly. But S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't really there for Hawkeye, nor are they necessarily super worried about what this one man is doing. Instead, S.H.I.E.L.D. is there to contact the Avengers because there is something wrong at the secret government facility, the Cube, and they believe that the Avengers are the only people that can stop it. And this allows Hawkeye to escape and continue to pursue Black Widow like he was planning to. When we catch back up with Hawkeye, he is once again pursuing Black Widow to another one of Hydra's secret bases, and is looking to not only settle the score between the two of them, but also to capture her in order to take her to the Avengers. Now, I find it interesting that he doesn't want to take them to S.H.I.E.L.D., even though, yes, he is a complete traitor to them. He would rather trust the Avengers, who were just hunting him down, than he would S.H.I.E.L.D. I think it speaks volumes to the fact that he has lost almost all confidence in an organization that he used to believe in so highly. But I also think part of it is he almost has this sort of masochistic death wish when it comes to fighting Black Widow. He's either going to turn her in and get the information, or he's straight up just going to die trying.
You should have let it go, Clint.
So shoot. Come on, Natasha. Do it! Come on, you Hydra scum!
And when Hawkeye does finally get Black Widow dead to rights, he decides to take her to the Avengers, as I stated earlier, simply because S.H.I.E.L.D. probably wasn't going to believe a single word that he said, even if he had a video recording, at least at this moment. Now, Hawkeye is still very scorned by the fact of what Black Widow did to him. She was his closest partner, his closest confidant, and his closest friend. He would put blind faith into her, and he had that faith shattered, and so he was much more willing to take her to the Avengers than to S.H.I.E.L.D. or anywhere else, but he simply wanted to see her get punished for this. But on the flip side of that, Hawkeye would have had to have had some faith in the Avengers, as while Hawkeye is trying to go deliver Black Widow to the cube where the Avengers are currently at after having taken care of the Gamma issue there over in Nevada, it doesn't end up working out very well for them, as this was all planned out by the leader, who was trying to turn everyone in the entire world into gamma irradiated monsters. And when Hawkeye finds this out, it is far too late, as he is quite literally about to be consumed by the gamma radiation. So him and Black Widow have to make a hightail chase out of there. And now Clint has a bigger problem than just delivering Black Widow to the Avengers. Now he has to figure out a way to save the Avengers from the radiation dome. And he comes up with a pretty good plan to do that.
You're part of this, aren't you?
Don't be stupid. Hydra has as much to lose as anyone if that maniac takes over the world. Clint, the Avengers were inside that dome. They're gone. What now?
Not all of the Avengers were inside. We have to find the Hulk.
I feel like Hawkeye is one of, if not the most relatable character in this show. He is the base human who is surrounded by gods, monsters, and super soldiers. He goes through the widest range of emotions, I feel, even if it just seems like he is the wisecracking guy who has no heart and doesn't feel anything. We are shown multiple times that there is a depth of emotion to this character, and that he is capable of doing some really crappy things, such as just leaving Black Widow to be irradiated. Now granted, I don't blame him considering the way he was treated by Black Widow, but it kind of gets put into perspective of how this character is. He reminds me a lot of Guy Gardner, that Green Lantern, and Guy Gardner is one of my favorite superheroes on the DC side of things. Now, of course, Hawkeye does go save Hulk, as he needs Bruce Banner's help, and of course, when he does meet Bruce Banner, the Hulk, he is under attack, and Hawkeye decides to not only save him, but try and convince the Hulk to give him Bruce Banner, so that the two of them can save the Avengers, and he does it in a pretty hilarious way.
Meet Bruce Banner in the next 3 seconds? Bottom line, I will take you down.
Like, that's definitely some stuff Guy Gardner would have pulled in order to calm somebody down. Guy Gardner comparisons aside, I think Hawkeye does things like this on purpose. He sees a way of diffusing the situation by almost fake escalating it to the point that it seems humorous in his overconfidence in himself. And I think that's part of what he uses as a sort of diffusing tool, especially when talking with a character like Hulk, that he knows he can't force to do anything at all. Now, Hawkeye and Bruce Banner eventually do create a plan in order to stop the leader, and in order to save the rest of the Avengers and potentially the world from being taken over and gamma irradiated. This is all thanks to technology that Bruce developed, giving Hawkeye the ability to essentially transform the gamma irradiated Avengers back into their normal states using specific trick arrows that I always found to be nice and a little bit gimmicky. But when Hawkeye does eventually take down the leader with the help of both Hulk and Thor, he is given the option to go back to S.H.I.E.L.D.
Footage from your sky cycle confirms your story. The Widow is working for Hydra. I sent agents to her location, but she was long gone.
She's good. I'll give her that.
You're cleared, Hawkeye. Your S.H.I.E.L.D. special agent status will be reinstated.
You mean the same S.H.I.E.L.D. that locked me up? Yeah, no thanks. I'm going after the Widow on my own.
Hawkeye once again rejects the notion of returning to S.H.I.E.L.D., an organization he feels has deliberately scorned him. I mean, dude doesn't even consider the offer Tony Stark gives him to join the Avengers, but it ends up being Hulk that changes his mind. Throughout Part 2 of Gamma World, both Hulk and Hawkeye have developed a sort of relationship together that is built on trust and faith, the two of them putting faith in each other and trust. Hawkeye almost seems to gain himself another partner inside of the Avengers, And he decides that, you know what, if Hulk stays, I'll stay. And even though Hawkeye may moan and groan about the Avengers, he does end up finding them a great group that he likes to stay with.
Okay, so listen. You realize the Avengers are a complete disaster, right? Iron Man is completely unqualified to lead a team like this. Thor is crazy. The Hulk is a bomb waiting to go off. Ant-Man couldn't be less interested in taking down bad guys. And Wasp belongs on the party circuit, not in law enforcement.
Funnily enough, he has almost nothing negative to say about Captain America, and nothing too overly negative to say about T'Challa, as the two of them stay at the Wakandan embassy. Hawkeye has sort of found himself a new group of partners that he can put his trust into, knowing that they most likely will not betray him again like he was before. And honestly, this leads to some of the funniest moments in the show when it comes to Hawkeye being on the Avengers. He often does a lot of stupid things and/or impulsive things, and his sort of comedic timing in each one of these episodes, specifically with Hulk, which are some of my favorites.
All right, I'll take them all. Just rest, big guy.
Maybe I will rest now. Good luck.
Hawkeye also has a pretty fun relationship with Black Panther, which was mostly shown in the Masters of Evil episode, where the two of them were at the Wakandan embassy, and hence the rest of the Avengers get kidnapped. They're both left alone and sort of underestimated, and so they make a plan to save Ant-Man, give him some time to get his equipment from the lab, and act as a distraction for the rest of the group, which I find absolutely hilarious when they explain this to Baron Zemo.
Weird. Purple Puss here seems to think we were trying to defeat him.
I heard. He is misguided. We were not trying to defeat your team, Baron. We were simply allowing Ant-Man uninterrupted access to his lab.
And Ant-Man goes to his lab, gets his stuff, the Avengers get freed, and they all go into this big fight. But now this episode wasn't really Hawkeye-centric. It just had some funny moments for him, such as when he does save the Avengers for what him feels like the second time in a row.
You know, I'm not so sure I want to be part of a team I have to rescue every week.
Perhaps they will elect you team leader now.
Really? You think?
The next truly Hawkeye-centric episode is Widow's Sting, in which he is once again disobeying not only direct orders from S.H.I.E.L.D., but direct orders from the Avengers in his continued pursuit of Black Widow, mainly because Black Widow and Hydra as a whole are off limits to the Avengers. Even though the Avengers do not officially work for S.H.I.E.L.D., follow any of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s rules, they sort of have this uneasy, unspoken agreement that they're not allowed to deal with certain targets, and one of them for the Avengers is Hydra, as the Avengers have enough problems with all of the villains that broke out from the various prisons that happened earlier in this first season. And when Hawkeye is once again caught disobeying orders and going after Hydra, he is promptly reprimanded not only by Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. as a whole, but also he is quickly reprimanded by Iron Man of the Avengers. Hawkeye really just wished at this point that he felt like he was being supported by at least the Avengers at the bare minimum, and he was going to go after Natasha regardless. Thankfully, two people are there to support him, those being Black Panther and Captain America.
You want to help? You know, would it have killed you two to say any of this while I was getting chewed out by Fury and Stark in there?
Still the same old charmer, aren't you, Hawkeye? Nice to see you haven't matured at all since you left S.H.I.E.L.D.
And he also gets help from one of his old partners in S.H.I.E.L.D., that being Mockingbird, aka Bobby, who happened to take up a new mantle now that there was an opening in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Special Agents Division, considering both Hawkeye and Black Widow went rogue on them. And the four of them come up with a genius plan to get Hawkeye and Mockingbird captured so that Black Panther and Captain America can stealthily follow them to wherever Hydra is running their operation. And this plan works pretty much as well as they could have expected, with both Mockingbird and Hawkeye being captured by Varen von Strucker and the Hydra organization as a whole. Yeah, their plan kind of went to crap, as the two of them ended up in prison cells and sort of just waiting to be rescued by Captain America and Black Panther. But in waiting to be rescued, Hawkeye and Mockingbird have a heart-to-heart where they explain to each other how they're feeling and what's going on. but this is quickly interrupted by Natasha, who comes in to antagonize Hawkeye. At least that's how he views it from his perspective. And he, of course, is very frustrated with not only seeing her, but having to talk to her in the first place.
Hawkeye,
You can stop right there, Tasha.
I don't want to hear it.
You're dead to me.
I'm gonna get out of here and make you pay. Do you hear me? I'll never stop, Widow!
And using his own rage to sort of mask his escape, as he's able to open the door to his cell and get Bobby out of her cell as well, in order to have a grand, gigantic battle between Hydra, the two of them, and of course Black Panther and Captain America. Now, what I find very interesting in this entire gigantic fight is that Hawkeye does actually have a chance to take out Black Widow permanently. He has a shot right at her, but when he sees that Bobby or Mockingbird is being taken down, he chooses instead to save Mockingbird, as his morals would not let him simply just leave her to die. And I find that very interesting. With how needy he is to take down Black Widow, he's still going to look out for his friends, even if that leads to a less advantageous fight against Black Widow later. And then we get something that was extremely interesting. So the entire time this show has presented Black Widow as being a traitor, but we've seen hints and flashes of her being a hero, right? We've seen hints of her own vulnerability and some sort of clues that she doesn't exactly like what she's doing, despite the act that she is putting on. And when Baron von Strucker almost kills Hawkeye, Black Widow just doesn't let it happen. There's clearly a motive behind the reason of saving Hawkeye, and she just doesn't explain it yet, instead telling him to simply leave and be thankful for his life. And this left Clint rattled and wondering why Black Widow would save his life. But there wasn't much time for him to think about this, at least yet, as he's getting grilled by Nick Fury, and Captain America kind of shields him from this, as Captain America is one of Nick Fury Jr.'s heroes, having served with his father. So Hawkeye gets off a little bit lighter, but then he does express how he's feeling to those two Avengers and thanks them.
My back.
That's what being on a team means.
I can't figure it out. Why'd she do it? Why'd Natasha save me?
This leads to Hawkeye kind of cooling off on his pursuit of Black Widow, at least for a little bit, until she decides to show up to his doorstep. Now, Hawkeye was having another powwow with the Avengers, basically saying, I'm the best archer, I can shoot better than anybody else, watch me do it. And while he was in the middle of trying to attempt this, the power goes out at the mansion, and the Avengers are rightfully confused and concerned, of course, as this isn't a typical occurrence despite Hawkeye's quips. And what they find is extremely interesting, as Black Widow is just standing at the front door of the Avengers mansion and is asking for their help. Now, I do love the fact that Hulk was quite literally down to ride for Hawkeye and was willing to straight up kill Black Widow, but Black Widow comes with a lot of information. She is essentially saying that Nick Fury put her undercover to help figure out what Hydra and AIM were building together, that being the Cosmic Cube, a device that can make any sort of wish come into reality, regardless of how life-altering it could be. Now, Hawkeye is, of course, skeptical, but decides to give Black Widow a chance to explain herself and explain the situation, mainly because he wants to believe that there is still good in her, especially considering the fact that she went out of her way to save him from Baron von Strucker. And another thing I find highly interesting about this is when all of the other Avengers quite literally doubt Black Widow and say she is full of it and that she's lying and that Nick Fury has gone to ground for a different reason, Hawkeye is the one that stands up for her and basically says, I believe her and I trust her, which I find very interesting, as he has spent a majority of this entire first season hating Black Widow to her core. He has essentially been looking for revenge and angry with her. But I think it's also in discovering the truth and getting the real answers of why she would do this that his anger subsides, and that he's able to work with her once again, even if he does so in sort of a picky, jabby way, basically saying, haha, like old times, except, without all the betrayal. And to Hawkeye, I think it's his way of saying, I forgive you. Now, of course, the Avengers are able to stop Baron von Strucker from making any sort of wish with the Cosmic Cube and are able to save the day. But Black Widow is still wanted by S.H.I.E.L.D. heavily, and while the other Avengers are talking to S.H.I.E.L.D., Hawkeye lets Black Widow go.
You're clear.
This is crazy, Natasha. Come back to the mansion with me.
The Avengers will protect you until we can locate Fury.
No, I have to find him. Clint, if Fury really is missing, then something terrible has happened. Come with me.
I can't. I'm an Avenger. They're my partners now.
And while Hawkeye does forgive Black Widow, he also is ready to move on with another group of heroes to have new partners and be strong enough to forge new relationships as an Avenger. Oh, did I forget to mention this is also like partially a love story between the two characters? Because it kind of is, but that wasn't really the most prominent thing about the relationship. Regardless, that pretty much wraps up Hawkeye's arc in this TV show. He was really more of a comic relief character, but he did have a quite interesting arc. Dude really reminds me of Gardner from the Justice League comics, and I think that's partly why I love him so much. I just wish I had more to say, but I was never really big into Hawkeye comics, nor did I really know much about the character outside of the limited interpretations I saw from the MCU, this TV show, and the one comic book run I read in like 2017. But regardless, you guys were requesting this video like crazy, and I always try to deliver, and as well, I just hope you guys enjoyed this video. I don't know how I've been cranking out all this content, and I think part of it is I'm missing small bits and details when I am covering these episodes. I really hope I've reined it in with this episode, unlike my Hulk one, and I hope I've really only missed like one or two details that are minor, and I'm really hoping I haven't missed any major details. But if I have, you guys have my full permission to flame me in the comments because I've really tried this time. Regardless, thank you all so much for watching. And if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you disliked the video, please tell me why you disliked the video. And overall, if you really enjoy my content, you want to see this stuff early, unedited, or you just want to support me, I do have a Patreon, and it's about $1 a month. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And now it's time for my favorite part of the video, which is shouting out my Patreons in the $5 tier and above, starting with MC Bomb 27, Donovan Gomez, Dakota Rawson, and Golden Boy 420. So thank you all to being my supporters. Shout out to you all, man. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.